Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is wrap-up time again, and this one's probably going to be pretty short because I talked about most of the books that I'm going to share in my wrap-up for the hashtag TBR takedown that I did near the beginning of the month, so I will link that up here if you want to go check that out, as well as I did a vlog, kind of like follow me around style, so if you haven't seen that, go check that out as well. But now, let's get started. Okay, so the first book is one that I had been working on for my book club, and that is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. And I really enjoyed this. I thought it was fun to get to sort of like have a conversation with some people about it and really talk about some of the themes like, you know, I used to do when I was in literature classes or English class in high school, things like that. I liked this. I didn't love it as much as I think a lot of people did. I thought the structure was really good, the way that it was in like little vignettes, though sometimes it felt like it took me out of certain portions of the story, which can sort of be the downside to switching perspectives a lot, which is what it does. But I also like the sort of puzzle aspect of this book. If you don't know what it's about, it is about a blind girl and a boy who's basically brought up in the Nazi youth camp and how their lives sort of collide. And it's in sort of unexpected ways, and it was fun to see things that were talked about in the beginning sort of start to come full circle in the end. So I do definitely recommend this book. It was really, really interesting to read, and I think it was one of my favorite that I read this month. So next up was this book about Disney, which is Walt Disney World Hidden History, and this one was okay. Like I said in my wrap-up for the hashtag TBR takedown, I've read better ones. It had a lot of stuff about founding dates and tributes to Imagineers, which is interesting, but that was the bulk of the book, and I felt like there were a lot more things that it could have addressed that it didn't. So the next thing I read was This is a Story of a Happy Marriage, and I read it and listened to it on audiobook because one of you guys actually told me that you had listened to it on audiobook, and since it's narrated by Anne herself, that was really interesting. I liked hearing her inflection and stuff, but at one point I was like, I'm really into this, so I ended up reading through the rest of it on the weekend because I only really listened to audiobooks in the car on the way to work, so I wasn't getting through it as fast as I really wanted to. But I thought that this was going to be a lot of like marriage related stories, but it's not. It's just some different pieces of nonfiction that Anne wrote. Some of them she wrote for magazines. I think most of them she wrote for magazines and different publications. And if you are looking at being a writer, you're interested in being a writer, you are a writer, I think this is a great book for you because she talks a lot about her personal experience as an author and just like everything that goes into it and some of the things that she went through. And it's really interesting. I definitely enjoyed this more than the next one that I read, which was Truth and Beauty, also by Ann Patchett. This one, I don't know. I think I would have enjoyed this more if I had really become attached to Lucy, or if I had any interest in Lucy, because this is Ann Patchett sort of telling the story of her friendship with Lucy Greeley, who was her best friend for many, many years. I personally found Lucy Greeley to be incredibly unlikable, and she reminded me of a lot of the people that I have made a point of pushing out of my life because they're selfish and they are attention hogging and they're the kind of people who only want your attention when it helps them. That's how Lucy felt to me, and so reading this book sort of stirred up some feelings of resentment that I have from past friendships, as well as just sort of thinking Anne was being used. And I don't know, to each their own, and I'm never going to judge anybody else's friendship. I think for me it took away from the enjoyment of the book. I was glad I read this after I read This is a Story of a Happy Marriage, because there is a story inside of This is a Story of a Happy Marriage that is about this book and about how it was chosen as like a required reading for college, and the reaction that they had, and then the speech that she gave. And having heard that and then reading this, I can understand partially why they had such a dramatic reaction, because I don't know, there's a lot of content in this book that is concerning, I guess, if you're a parent. I don't think that it's stuff that your college kids aren't going to learn about sooner or later, but I can see why some parents might have been a little upset about it. There are definitely triggers in this for drug and alcohol abuse and depression, so if that is something that is a trigger for you, you might want to avoid this. It was okay. It was well written because all of Anne's stuff is well written, but definitely not my favorite. And the last book that I finished this month was The Perfume Collector. I loved this book. It was my favorite book that I read this month. I started out listening to it as an audiobook because I was like, oh, I have that book. I'm going to go ahead and listen to the audiobook on Scribd. Just because I was like, oh, okay, we'll get a lighthearted audiobook going while I'm reading all these other books. I put everything else down and finished this. I'm pretty sure I read this in like a week. I don't know. It might have been longer than that, but I read it pretty quickly. This is about a woman named Eva, and we sort of learn about her life, and then another woman named Grace who finds out that she's inherited money from Eva, and she doesn't know Eva. So it's this whole journey of learning about Eva and how she became the woman that she was, and learning about Grace and sort of where her life is, and Grace going sort of on a journey to figure out why Eva left her this money. And it's fantastic. It is like a big puzzle, and you're bouncing back and forth between time periods and places, and you have to get different pieces of the information and the puzzle from each story. And it was so fascinating. There's this whole element of perfumery and that sort of industry, and it's set in New York and in Paris, and it is so beautifully done. I just loved this, and I am so glad that I picked it up. I think I initially picked this up because of some reference to it in connection with The Scent of Triumph, which is a book that I received from St. Martin's Press, and so now I'm really, really, really excited to read that one. I have to, of course, finish at least 2 of the 4 books that I am currently reading before I can pick that up, but I'm definitely going to be moving on to that because this whole perfume industry thing was fascinating to me too. But this book is fantastic, and I think that if any of these books you're going to pick up, pick this one up. It's so good, and it read really fast. Alright, so that was it. I didn't read a ton this month, and most of the books that I read were during the hashtag TBR Takedown readathon, so I have been a little book ADD, and I have 4 books going right now at the same time, which is probably why I didn't finish anything else, but that just means I'll probably finish all of those at the beginning of next month and then do the same thing to myself again. Who knows? Anyways, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye!